The fluorescent lights of the executive boardroom cast harsh shadows across Thomas Chen's face as he stood before 20 of the most powerful people in American manufacturing, men and women who wouldn't have let. His father through the front door without a mop. The CEO who'd called his family the help for 3 decades was leaning back in his leather chair with that same thin smile, waiting for Thomas to humiliate himself one more time. But Thomas had spent every night for 6 months in his father's janitor closet, hidden among industrial cleaning supplies, running numbers that told a story no one in this room wanted to hear. Their $2 billion company had exactly 90 days before catastrophic collapse, and the ruthless plan that was supposed to save them would instead be their execution. His hands didn't shake as he opened the manila folder, not because he wasn't terrified, but because he'd learned something his father knew after 40 years of emptying their trash cans. Powerful people leave their secrets in the garbage, and Thomas had been collecting evidence since he was 12 years old. The boardroom confrontation at its peak. Thomas standing alone before the hostile executive board, CEO Marcus Whitfield's contemptuous smirk as he prepares to have security escort the janitor's boy out. Thomas has just accused the CEO's $470 million acquisition plan of being corporate suicide dressed as genius. The room smells of leather, expensive cologne, and something sharper, fear masked as fury. Board members exchange glances, some already reaching for phones to call security. Whitfield's voice cuts through the tension like a blade, dismissing Thomas with the same casual cruelty he's used on the Chen family for decades. But Thomas places a single document on the mahogany table, a purchasing order from 2019 that Whitfield threw away, that Thomas's father pulled from the executive trash, that proves everything. The narrative then pulls back. But to understand how a 28-year-old data analyst with a janitor's clearance badge ended up holding the fate of $1 billion empire in his hands, we need to go back to where this really started, in a supply closet on the 4th floor, with a boy, his father, and a lesson about what powerful people never see coming. 6 months earlier, the annual shareholder meeting at Whitfield Manufacturing's headquarters in downtown Chicago. Glass tower, marble lobby, the company's legacy displayed in bronze plaques commemorating 70 years of American industrial success. Thomas Chen sits in the back row of the auditorium, employee badge visible, taking notes on his laptop, while CEO Marcus Whitfield presents the bold acquisition plan that will secure the company's future for generations. Whitfield is charismatic, commanding, a man who inherited his father's company and tripled its value through aggressive expansion and ruthless cost-cutting. He announces the acquisition of Meridian Industries for $470 million, promising shareholders a 40% revenue increase within 2 years. The room erupts in applause. Thomas watches the numbers on the presentation slides, his mind calculating something else entirely. After the meeting, in the executive elevator, Thomas took the stairs but is now carrying boxes for a move. Thomas encounters Whitfield directly for the first time in years. Whitfield doesn't recognize him, just sees a young Asian man in business casual holding boxes, makes a casual cutting remark. 4th floor, right? Make sure those get to Miller's office before lunch. Thomas could correct him, explain he's actually a senior data analyst in operations research. Instead, he just nods, because his father taught him something Whitfield never learned. Invisible people see everything. As Thomas exits, he passes his father, James Chen, pushing a cleaning cart. Their eyes meet briefly. No words, just understanding. That night, in the janitor's closet on the 4th floor where James has worked the night shift for 40 years, father and son spread financial documents across the floor, some from official reports, others from recycling bins. James points to a pattern he's noticed over decades. Whitfield always announces acquisitions in January, always promises transformation, and always destroys the acquired companies within 3 years. He's not building, James says quietly in Mandarin. He's strip mining. Flashback to Thomas at age 12, 2009. The recession hitting hard. James Chen is working double shifts at Whitfield Manufacturing, one of the few jobs he could find after immigrating from Taiwan in the 1990s with an engineering degree that American companies wouldn't recognize. Young Thomas spends evenings in the fourth-floor janitor's closet doing homework while his father works, his mother picking up overnight nursing shifts across town. Thomas is gifted, scholarship to a magnet school, already reading at college level. But he's learning something else in that closet, how businesses really work. James doesn't just clean, he observes. He shows Thomas the executive trash cans, teaching him to read the story behind discarded papers. In Taiwan, I designed manufacturing systems, James explains. Here, I empty the trash of men who make bad systems. But trash tells truth. Thomas learns to recognize patterns. Which executives fight behind closed doors? Torn up memos? Who's getting fired? Updated org charts in recycling? Which projects are failing? Crumpled budget reports. James turns it into a game, teaching his son to analyze business decisions through forensic evidence. One night, 13-year-old Thomas finds a discarded acquisition proposal for a company called Barton Industrial. He reads it carefully, then tells his father, "This will fail. They're paying for equipment that's already obsolete." James smiles sadly. "You're right." But no one asks the janitor. 6 months later, Barton Industrial is liquidated. Whitfield makes $80 million by selling the real estate and firing everyone. Thomas watches his father clean the empty offices where 300 people used to work. That's when Thomas makes his decision. He'll become what they can't ignore. He studies business and data science at University of Illinois on full scholarship, works overnight as a security guard to send money home, graduates top of his class. When Whitfield Manufacturing posts an opening for operations research analyst, Thomas applies. He doesn't tell them his father works there. He doesn't need to use connections. His credentials are flawless. He gets hired at 24. For 4 years, he does brilliant work in the shadows, optimizing supply chains, identifying cost savings, building financial models that senior executives present as their own ideas. Thomas doesn't mind being invisible. His father taught him, invisible people are underestimated, and underestimated people can see the truth coming long before the powerful realize they're standing in its path. Now, at 28, watching Whitfield announce another acquisition, Thomas recognizes the pattern. This isn't business strategy, it's a con. And that knowledge, built from 12 years of studying powerful men's trash, was about to change everything. The Meridian Industries acquisition dominates business news. $470 million for a mid-sized automotive parts manufacturer with contracts across Detroit's reviving auto industry. Wall Street analysts praise Whitfield's vision. Vertical integration, expanded market share, positioning Whitfield Manufacturing as the dominant player in American industrial components. CNBC features Marcus Whitfield. "We're not just buying a company, we're buying America's manufacturing future." Stock price jumps 18% on announcement day. Shareholders celebrate. The board of directors, old money families, institutional investors, retired executives, rubber stamp the deal in a unanimous vote. Behind the scenes, the acquisition team works frantically. Due diligence reports stack up, legal reviews, financial audits, market analyses. Everything looks perfect on paper. Meridian's revenue is growing, client list is impressive, facilities are modern. The deal is structured as a cash and stock transaction, with Whitfield Manufacturing taking on $200 million to $200 million in debt to finance it. CFO Patricia Brennan, a sharp woman in her 50s who worked her way up from accounting, has minor concerns about Meridian's debt load, but is reassured by the senior team. The revenue growth more than covers the risk, they tell her. She signs off. What no one sees, because no one is looking in the right places, is the pattern hidden in Meridian's client contracts. Thomas sees it immediately. Sitting in his small office on the third floor, executives are on 12 and 13, he runs Meridian's publicly available contract data through his own models. The numbers tell a different story. Meridian's growth is built on 5-year contracts with major auto manufacturers. Contracts negotiated in 2019-2020 when parts were scarce and prices were premium. Those contracts are coming up for renewal in 2025. And the renewal terms, buried in footnotes, allow for renegotiation at market rates. Current market rates are 30% lower than what Meridian has been charging. Thomas runs the calculation 3 times. If those contracts renew at current market rates, Meridian's revenue drops by $140 million annually. The company becomes unprofitable overnight. The $470 million acquisition becomes a $200 million anchor, dragging Whitfield Manufacturing into insolvency. Thomas brings his analysis to his direct supervisor, David Park, a mid-level manager who's always treated Thomas well. David looks at the models, his face going pale. Are you sure? Thomas nods. David closes the door. Tom, this deal has momentum. The board approved it. The CEO's reputation is on the line. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong. If you're right, you're accusing the entire executive team of missing something catastrophic. David stares at the numbers. I need to think about this. 2 days later, David tells Thomas the senior team has it under control and to focus on his assigned projects. Thomas knows what that means. The train is leaving the station, and no one wants to hear about the bridge being out ahead. He watches the acquisition close in March 2024. Whitfield Manufacturing takes on the debt, integrates Meridian's operations, announces projected revenues. The financial media celebrates. Marcus Whitfield appears on the cover of Forbes, the architect of American manufacturing's revival. Thomas goes back to his small office and starts building a case that no one will be able to ignore. September 2024. Thomas has spent 6 months building his analysis in secret, working nights in his father's janitor closet, where he can access the company's document retention room without attracting attention. The closet has become his war room, laptop connected to company databases, printed contracts spread across the floor, financial models running on screens. His father works around him, emptying executive trash cans and bringing Thomas pieces of the puzzle. Discarded memos about Meridian's performance, preliminary renewal negotiation updates, internal emails about client complaints. Tonight, Thomas finds it. The document his father pulled from Marcus Whitfield's personal office trash. A preliminary renewal proposal from Meridian's largest client, General Automotive Systems. Thomas reads it twice, his heart rate accelerating. GAS is proposing to renew their contract at $42 per unit instead of $62, a 32% reduction. And there's a handwritten note in the margin, Whitfield's distinctive scrawl. Mitchell, bury this until Q2. We need 6 more months before the board sees these numbers. Thomas takes a photograph of the document. Then he cross-references it with the other client renewal proposals he's tracked. Every single major contract is being renegotiated down. Meridian is hemorrhaging value in real time, and Whitfield knows. He's not unaware. He's deliberately hiding the collapse. The realization hits Thomas like cold water. This isn't a mistake. This is fraud. Whitfield acquired Meridian knowing, or at least suspecting, the contracts were overvalued. He's planning to keep the problems hidden until he can engineer some kind of exit strategy, probably by selling off assets and blaming market conditions while pocketing bonuses for the initial acquisition success. Meanwhile, Whitfield Manufacturing will be left holding worthless debt, and thousands of workers will lose their jobs. Thomas sits back against the cold concrete wall of the closet. His father, pushing the cleaning cart, stops in the doorway. James sees his son's expression. "You found it," he says in Mandarin. "Not a question." Thomas nods. "If I do this, they'll destroy me. I'll never work in corporate America again. James is quiet for a moment. Then, your grandfather was a school teacher in Taiwan. The government told him to teach lies about history. He refused. They took his job, blacklisted him. But he could look at himself in the mirror. He meets Thomas's eyes. You're not doing this for them. You're doing this because the truth matters. And because 3,000 people work in that factory in Indiana who have no idea what's coming. Thomas looks down at the document in his hands, at the numbers that tell the story no one wants to hear. He thinks about his father spending 40 years being invisible, being dismissed, watching powerful men make destructive decisions while the workers paid the price. In that moment, Thomas knew what he had to do. Not because it was safe, because it was right. October 2024. Thomas requests a meeting with CFO Patricia Brennan. She's his best shot, the only executive who showed hesitation during the acquisition approval, the only one who came up through the ranks rather than through connections. Her assistant tries to screen him. What's this regarding? Thomas says simply, Meridian contract renewals. It's urgent. Patricia gives him 15 minutes on a Thursday afternoon. Thomas arrives with a printed report, 40 pages of analysis. Patricia sits across from him in her office, expensive but not ostentatious. Photos of her kids on the desk. She's professional, slightly impatient. What do you have? Thomas doesn't ease into it. Meridian's revenue is going to drop by $147 million over the next 18 months. The acquisition is going to bankrupt us. Patricia's expression doesn't change. That's a serious accusation. What's your evidence? Thomas walks her through it. The contract renewal terms, the market rate comparisons, the timeline. He shows her the discarded proposal from Gas, explains where he found it. Patricia's face hardens when she realizes Thomas has been going through executive trash. Mr. Chen, do you understand what you're saying? You're accusing the CEO of either incompetence or fraud. I'm saying he knew the contracts were vulnerable and acquired Meridian anyway. Whether that's incompetence or fraud depends on when he knew and what he did about it. Patricia studies the numbers. Thomas can see her mind working, her fingers tapping the desk. A nervous tell. This analysis. If you're right, why didn't our due diligence team catch this? Because they looked at historical revenue, not contract structure. And because no one questioned why Meridian was so eager to sell at this price. Silence. Patricia stands, walks to her window overlooking the Chicago skyline. If I bring this to the board, Marcus will bury both of us. His family has controlled this company for 3 generations. The board is full of his father's friends. Then the company fails in 18 months and 3,000 people lose their jobs while Whitfield walks away with his compensation package. Patricia turns. You have kids, Mr. Chen? No, I have 3. One starting college next year. I need this job. She looks at him. But you're right. If this is true, we can't ignore it. She picks up her phone, dials. Marcus? Patricia, I need an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow. No, it can't wait. We have a serious problem with the Meridian acquisition. She hangs up. Looks at Thomas. You better be absolutely certain. Because tomorrow, you're going to have to say this to his face. And he's not going to forgive either of us. Friday morning. Emergency board meeting in the executive conference room. 13th floor. 20 board members, plus CEO Marcus Whitfield, CFO Patricia Brennan, General Counsel Richard Torres, and Thomas Chen, the lowest-ranking person in the room by a margin of 6 management levels. The room is designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows, custom table worth more than Thomas's annual salary, original artwork on the walls. Thomas has been here once before, delivering a report for his supervisor. Now he's standing at the head of the table. Whitfield sits at the opposite end, his expression controlled, but his eyes furious. He didn't want this meeting. Patricia forced it by telling the board chair there was a material risk to the acquisition. Board members are confused, annoyed at being summoned on short notice. Board chair Eleanor Hartwick, 72 years old steel money, sits beside Whitfield. "Ms. Brennan, you have the floor, and this better be worth disrupting everyone's schedule." Patricia nods to Thomas. "Thomas Chen, senior analyst in operations research, has identified a critical issue with the Meridian acquisition. I've reviewed his analysis. It's credible enough to warrant full board attention." The room shifts. Board members look at Thomas, really look at him for the first time. Several recognize him vaguely. One whispers to another, "Isn't that James's son?" Marcus Whitfield's jaw tightens. Thomas opens his laptop, his presentation already loaded on the room's display screens. His hands are steady. Years of being underestimated have taught him this: competence is quiet. Meridian Industries' revenue is built on 5-year contracts negotiated in 2019 and 2020 under exceptional market conditions. These contracts are now entering renewal periods. I've analyzed the preliminary renewal proposals from Meridian's 6 largest clients. He pulls up the first slide, a comparison chart showing contract rates versus current market rates. The gap is obvious, even to non-technical viewers. Current contracts average $58 per unit. Market rate for equivalent components is now $41 per unit. That's a 29% difference. Board member Robert Chen, no relation, coincidentally also Chinese-American, leans forward. "Are you saying Meridian was overcharging?" "I'm saying Meridian negotiated favorable rates during a supply shortage. Those rates are no longer sustainable, and when these contracts renew, Meridian's revenue will drop by approximately $147 million annually." Silence. Someone coughs. Whitfield speaks, his voice calm but cold. "Mr. Chen, our due diligence team, our financial advisors, and our legal counsel all reviewed these contracts. Are you suggesting they all missed this?" Thomas meets his eyes. "I'm suggesting they looked at historical performance, not forward-looking contract exposure. The renewal terms are buried in appendices. Most analysts don't read that deep into auto industry contracts." He clicks to the next slide, the document from Whitfield's trash. This is a preliminary renewal proposal from General Automotive Systems, dated August 2024. It proposes a 32% rate reduction. This was in your office 2 months ago. The room goes cold. Whitfield's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his posture. "Where did you get that?" "From a discarded copy in document retention." Technically true, Whitfield knows what it means. Patricia Brennan speaks up. "I've verified Thomas's analysis with our own financial models. If these renewal rates hold across Meridian's client base, the acquisition becomes cash flow negative by Q3 2025. Combined with the $200 million debt we assumed, this puts Whitfield Manufacturing's credit rating at risk." Eleanor Hartwick looks at Whitfield. "Marcus, did you know about these renewal negotiations?" "We knew renewals were coming. That's normal business. This analysis is speculative." Thomas interrupts, something he would never normally do. "It's not speculative. I have preliminary proposals from 4 of 6 major clients, all showing rate reductions between 28% and 34%. He displays them on screen. These are real negotiations happening right now. Board member David Kessler, a retired automotive executive, studies the proposals. "These look legitimate. Marcus, why weren't we informed?" Whitfield's control is slipping. "Because negotiations aren't final. We don't report every preliminary proposal to the board. That would be chaos." Thomas continues. "The problem isn't just the revenue drop, it's the debt. We financed this acquisition with $200 million in loans, based on Meridian's current revenue projections. If revenue drops, we can't service that debt. Default provisions kick in." General Counsel Richard Torres flips through papers. "What are the default terms?" "Accelerated repayment. Full amount due within 90 days if EBITDA falls below certain thresholds." Torres's face goes white. "That would bankrupt us." The room erupts. Board members talking over each other, demanding answers. Eleanor Hartwick bangs her pen on the table. "Enough. Marcus, is this true?" Whitfield stands, trying to regain control. This is a worst-case analysis based on preliminary negotiations. We have strategies to maintain pricing, to optimize operations. This young man is catastrophizing. I'm reading the contracts, Thomas says quietly. Everyone stops. Thomas clicks to a new slide. The contract renewal language. Section 12.4. Upon renewal, pricing shall reflect current market rates as determined by independent industry survey. We don't control the pricing. The market does, and the market has moved against us. The turning point comes from an unexpected source. Board member David Kessler picks up his phone. Give me a moment. He dials, puts it on speaker. This is David Kessler. I'm calling for Mike Harrison. The room waits. A voice comes through. Mike Harrison. Mike, it's Dave Kessler. I'm in a board meeting at Whitfield Manufacturing. We're discussing Meridian Industries' contract renewals. You're their largest customer. Can you tell me where you stand on pricing? Brief pause. Dave, I sent preliminary terms to Meridian last month. We're proposing $39 per unit, down from $61. Our procurement team says that's above market rate. We're trying to be fair because of the acquisition, but our CFO won't approve renewal at current pricing. Supply chain costs are down 30% from pandemic levels. We can't justify the premium anymore. Kessler's eyes move to Whitfield. And if Meridian doesn't agree to the new rate? Then we go to bid with other suppliers. We have 3 competing offers already. Thank you, Mike. Kessler hangs up. Looks at the board. That's $47 million in annual revenue dropping to $29 million. Everything this young man said is accurate. The room's atmosphere changes. Board members start pulling out their own phones, making calls. Within 15 minutes, 3 more clients confirm similar positions. The evidence is no longer theoretical. It's happening in real time. Eleanor Hartwick turns to Whitfield. Marcus, did you know about these renewal negotiations when we voted on the acquisition? We knew renewals were coming. Did you know clients were planning to demand rate reductions of this magnitude? Whitfield's silence is answer enough. Patricia Brennan speaks. I found something else. She opens her own folder. 3 days ago, I requested the full acquisition file from our legal team. There's an internal memo from January during due diligence. The team flagged the contract renewal risk and recommended a $120 million reduction in offer price to account for it. That recommendation was overridden. She slides the memo across the table. Eleanor Hartwick reads it. Her face hardens. Who overrode this recommendation? Patricia looks at Whitfield. The CEO has discretion on pricing strategy. Hartwick's voice is ice. Marcus, did you knowingly pay $120 million more than your own team recommended while hiding contract renewal risks from this board? The room is silent. Every eye on Whitfield. Thomas watches the moment when power shifts. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but with the inexorable certainty of gravity. Whitfield's empire, built on confidence and control, cracking along the fault line of truth. Eleanor Hartwick calls for a 30-minute recess. The board reconvenes in executive session. Without Whitfield, Thomas waits outside with Patricia, both of them silent. Through the closed doors, raised voices. 90 minutes later, the board calls them back in. Hartwick's expression is grim. Mr. Chen, your analysis has created a crisis, but you've also given us time to respond. The question is, how? Thomas glances at Patricia, who nods. He opens a second presentation. I have a proposal. We can't stop the revenue decline, but we can survive it. New slides appear. First, we renegotiate the debt. Show lenders the renewal reality. Propose extended terms with adjusted covenants. They'll accept lower returns over bankruptcy. Second, we restructure Meridian's operations. Current overhead is built for $420 million revenue. We need to resize for $280 million. That means consolidating 3 facilities into 2, reducing workforce by 30%, cutting executive compensation across both companies. Board members shift uncomfortably. Thomas continues. Third, we pivot Meridian's product strategy. Current contracts are for commodity components, low margin, high volume, but Meridian has engineering capability we're not using. We develop premium specialty components for electric vehicle manufacturers. Higher margin, sustainable pricing, future-proof market. He shows market analysis. EV manufacturers need specialized thermal management components. Meridian has the metallurgy expertise, but never developed the product line because high-volume contracts were easier. If we invest $30 million in R&D now, we can have products in testing by Q3 2025, revenue by 2026. Robert Chen studies the numbers. This is actually viable. It requires sacrifice, Thomas says. Short-term pain, layoffs, executive pay cuts, suspended dividends for 2 years. But the company survives, and in 3 years, we're stronger than before. Kessler nods slowly. This is the kind of strategic thinking we should have had before the acquisition. Hartwick looks at Whitfield, who's sitting silent, defeated. Marcus, do you have an alternative proposal? Whitfield says nothing. Hartwick turns back to Thomas. Mr. Chen, how confident are you in this plan? Thomas meets her eyes. Confident enough to stake my career on it, which I already have. Hartwick looks at the board. I'm recommending we implement Mr. Chen's restructuring plan immediately. All in favor? 19 hands. Whitfield abstains. Motion carries. The board meeting ends at 6 p.m. As Thomas gathers his laptop, Eleanor Hartwick approaches him. Mr. Chen, the board would like to speak with you, separately. In the smaller conference room, Hartwick sits across from Thomas with 3 other board members. What you did today took remarkable courage and remarkable analytical skill. The question is, why didn't you bring this to your supervisors earlier? Thomas considers lying, then decides on truth. I did. I was told the executive team had it under control. Hartwick's mouth tightens. I see. Mr. Chen, the board is going to make some immediate changes. Marcus Whitfield will be stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. Patricia Brennan will serve as interim CEO. We'll be conducting a full review of the executive team's handling of this acquisition. She pauses. We'd like to offer you a position. Chief Strategy Officer, reporting directly to the CEO. You'll lead the Meridian restructuring and work with the board on future acquisitions. Starting salary $340,000 plus equity. Thomas is silent. CSO is a C-suite position, 3 levels above where he was this morning. I'm 28. I've never managed a team. You just managed an entire board into making the hardest decision this company has faced in 20 years. I think you can handle a team. Robert Chen adds, For what it's worth, I've been on this board for 12 years. I've never seen anyone present analysis that clearly under that much pressure. You have a gift for this. Thomas thinks about his father, probably starting his evening shift right now. Can I have 24 hours to consider? Hartwick smiles. Take the weekend. But Thomas, you've already changed everything. You might as well stay and see it through. That night, Thomas finds his father in the 4th-floor janitor's closet. James is organizing cleaning supplies, radio playing softly. Thomas tells him everything. James is quiet for a long moment. Then, CSO, Chief Strategy Officer. Yes? They want you in the boardroom. Yes? James nods slowly. Your grandfather would be proud. I'm proud. He looks at his son. But you'll still visit me in the closet sometimes. Old man gets lonely. Thomas smiles. Every week. You're still the best strategic advisor I've got. The next Monday, news breaks. Whitfield Manufacturing announces leadership transition, restructuring plan, strategic repositioning of Meridian acquisition. Business media scrambles. Bloomberg runs a story. Unknown analyst saves 2B company, exposes CEO cover-up. By Wednesday, Thomas's LinkedIn has 10,000 connection requests. CNBC wants an interview. Harvard Business Review calls about a case study. Thomas declines the media requests. He has work to do. In the months that followed, Thomas's restructuring plan unfolded exactly as projected. Painful, but necessary. Meridian's workforce reduction happened through voluntary buyouts first, minimizing forced layoffs. The two facilities that remained open became centers for the new EV component line. Marcus Whitfield resigned quietly, his reputation permanently damaged. Industry publications ran retrospectives on his strip mining acquisition strategy, exposing similar patterns in previous deals. 3 class action lawsuits were filed by shareholders. Whitfield settled out of court. Patricia Brennan proved to be a capable CEO, her operational expertise stabilizing the company through the transition. She made Thomas's position permanent and brought in other overlooked analysts from lower ranks. The executive team, rebuilt from the ground up, looked radically different. More women, more people of color, more people who'd come up through operations rather than finance or family connections. By spring 2025, Meridian had secured its first major contract for EV thermal components with a California manufacturer. By summer, 2 more contracts. The revenue didn't replace what was lost from the renewed legacy contracts, but the margins were higher and the future was secure. Whitfield Manufacturing's stock took a 30% hit in late 2024, but stabilized by mid-2025 as the restructuring demonstrated competence. Industry analysts who'd praised Whitfield's acquisition now praised the dramatic turnaround led by unconventional leadership. Thomas's father, James, continued working as a janitor. He turned down Thomas's offer to help him retire. "I like my job," he said. "I get to see how things really work. And now, my son listens when I tell him." But the company did something unusual. They featured James in their annual report, in a section on institutional knowledge and long-term employees. It was small, but it acknowledged something that had been invisible for 40 years. Sometimes, the people cleaning the floors see the cracks in the foundation before the architects do. A year after that board meeting, a business school professor interviewing Thomas for a case study asked him what he'd learned from the experience. Thomas thought about it carefully. "I learned that being underestimated is only a disadvantage if you believe it yourself. My father spent 40 years being treated as invisible. He was never invisible. He was just ignored. There's a difference." He paused. "I also learned that the most dangerous thing in business isn't incompetence, it's arrogance." Marcus Whitfield wasn't stupid. He was arrogant enough to believe he could hide the truth, that no one would look closely enough, that his position protected him from accountability. But numbers don't care about corner offices or family legacies. Truth has a way of surfacing, usually when you least expect it. The professor asked if he'd do it again, knowing the risk. Thomas smiled. "My father once told me that in Taiwan, my grandfather lost his teaching position for refusing to teach lies. He said the only thing you truly own is your integrity. Everything else can be taken from you." So yes, I'd do it again. Because some things matter more than job security. Today, Thomas Chen still works at Whitfield Manufacturing, now as Chief Strategy Officer, leading a team of analysts who look nothing like the executives who used to run the company. His father still works the night shift on the 4th floor, though now he does it by choice rather than necessity. And every Thursday evening, Thomas sits with him in that same janitor's closet, spreading papers across the floor, analyzing the next challenge, learning the lessons that only come from seeing what powerful people leave behind. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what you think about the power of speaking truth to authority. Because in the end, the most powerful position isn't at the head of the table. It's being the person brave enough to tell the truth when everyone else is afraid to listen. And sometimes, the person who saves the empire is the one nobody saw coming. Not because they were invisible, but because everyone else was too busy looking in the wrong direction.